Hi, this is Katie McClung, and I am going to be explaining to you today some of the things that I have found helpful and I have learned about when using Canvas modules. None of the things I go over today are necessarily expectations for how you need to set up your own Canvas page. Again, these are just things that I have learned and I have appreciated and I would like to share with all of you today. So if you're a beginner, hopefully you'll see some things you like. If you've been using Canvas modules, then hopefully you'll see some maybe ways you could edit current modules. And if you're already well entrenched in the usage of modules, then again, I use modules every day, and these are things that I recently learned at our January playground conference. So I'm always learning new things about how to use our LMS. First, to go over why we use our modules, why they are useful in our classrooms, especially when you have a learning management system. They are a nice way to have some flexibility and fluidity with our content that we teach in our classrooms. I can create a module one year, and I may not use it the same way next year, but the things that I've built within the module are still useful. So even if I'm going to reorganize my classroom or the units that I teach or the way that I want the unit to flow, I can still use the things that I've put in that module. I'm just going to use them maybe in a new way. So it's a way to make edits to something you've already done rather than reinventing the whole wheel every time. So I really appreciate it for that reason. It's the quickest and easiest way for students to access information, in my opinion. It's a very quick way for them to just click and go into something. You can tell a student the title of the module pretty easily. So those are just some of the reasons I like modules. The next thing I want to talk about is forcing students, and I use forcing just because that's the first place I would like for them to click once they're on my page for my class. So forcing is probably a harsh word, but I guess that I am directly putting that as their only option for them. And so that's my first place students can go. And so I'm just going to show you in my English 9 page, for instance, when I'm in settings and navigation, the only two things I allow my students to see are home and modules. I do not have any of these available to students. And so when they go to their page, here's student view, they will only see from my home page the option to click on modules. They will not see any of these things on their page. They will only see modules. And so that's how I like it to look for my students. You wouldn't have to do it that way, but again, I don't like for them to have to go to several different places to get information. And I'll kind of go over that all of these are still used in my classroom. They just don't click on this bar to get to them. They're going to go to everything through the module place, I guess is what we would call it. When you think about building a module, and this is something I've struggled with as a teacher from the beginning of our usage of Canvas to now, is thinking about, should it be based on each lesson? Should it be based on time? And I think some of those things go along with the way I like to do things versus the way my students need to see things. For a long time when I was building modules, it was the way I wanted my students to access information. I wanted them to go to quizzes to take quizzes. I wanted them to go to discussions to do discussions. I wanted them to go several different places to do several different things because in my mind that made sense. But it ended up that I was giving them several different directives in class. If you miss a class, then you're going to have to go 7 different places. You have to figure those things out on your own. And so I was doing things in a way that my mind processed them, maybe not in the way that my students' minds processed them. And I also couldn't really figure out a way to make everything look correct in a module. And so that's what I want to talk about with you today, is kind of how to build your modules and how to make sure that they are, one, aesthetically pleasing and they work kind of to the student's eye flow and how he would look at a page, and why this might matter in your classroom. Again, it may not be something that is important to your classroom, but for my classroom, it's made some purposeful changes. So here is my, let's go to this one. Here is my English 9 module page for semester 2. And so this at the top is not really important. That's just their test averages and who's winning in the battle of the block. So let's just pretend that guy's not there. But here are all of my quarter 3 tests and quizzes. And so this is where they'll come and grab every single test and quiz. In the past, I've had a place for grammar. I've had a place for reading tests. I've had a place for vocabulary tests and those types of things. Now I've switched to just having one place that the kids will always go for anything that's a test or quiz in my class. And again, I don't have it turned on over here, But when I want to add a quiz, I can just simply click here. I have the option in a module to put any of these things in there. So again, I don't have them turned on the sidebar because they can just go to the module and find them. So I click add quiz, I can create a new quiz, or I can pick one of my pre-built quizzes. So I have those to choose from as well. And then it would just populate right here. If it's not where it needs to be, you can always move it around. And then you can just click on it from here to edit it or to assign it to your student. So that's one thing I've changed recently. The biggest thing I also learned from the playground, and Shannon Riegel showed us this at our playground conference, was that you could add titles within your modules, and then you could indent things within your modules. And I don't do it as perfectly as she does it yet. Again, this is my first semester doing it this way, but I have journals as a title, for instance, in my module, reading assignments, and vocabulary, and then they're going to have a project. So everything for quarter 3 is here, everything that we've done. And again, I've just added it through here. But what Shannon showed us, this text header, is a big change for me. So add, and you go to text header, and you can just title the chunks of your module. So maybe it's week 1, week 2, week 3, or unit 1, unit 2, unit 3. And you can put everything that goes within that module in there. So sometimes we maybe will read a unit in our textbook, but there might be sections or chapters. So anything that went with a certain section, you could give it a different section name within your module. I like that flexibility because in the past, and I'll show you, so this is my new way that my course looks. You can see that's pretty clean. In the past, here was my English 9th and last semester, I had several modules, and so it ended up, and this is probably a lesser amount than I even normally have. And so you can see that in here, there were just things thrown in there, quizzes and assignments and discussions, and everything was kind of just in one place. And it worked, but it wasn't as easy for the kids as it probably could have been. So now I have everything built into one module, and it comes on as the kids need to see it. Another thing that Shannon showed us that I really liked was the ability to indent things. So if you click here, you can increase the indent and make it come over a little bit more, or decrease the indent. And I've seen several teachers do this in their Canvas modules. And again, if you had a day that had different steps in it, it is kind of nice to see, again, for that aesthetically pleasing part, or for the way that the eye looks at something, to see that outline build. So you're going to start here, then step here, then step here, then step here. So you can kind of think about that within your module creation as well. I would say I'm a rookie in text headers and using the indents. I've seen other teachers use it in a better way. I've seen teachers who have kind of a daily plan for everything that they're going to do in their modules, and I really appreciate that as well. I'm still figuring out the best way to structure my modules, but the nice thing is when I went back to redo my modules for this quarter, I didn't have to recreate any materials. I just had to pull in assignments and put them in a different order. And I love that. So that's been really beneficial for me. And then I have quarter 4 there, and then I have quarter 4 built there. And again, that's just pulling in things I've created in the past and just building them in a module. Makes it much easier and much quicker for me to edit things quickly than to, again, have to recreate everything from scratch. So I do love that about Canvas. So again, that is how my Canvas looks. It is not how your Canvas has to look, and I'm sure that I went through that too quickly, so you may have questions, but I think that using modules in your classroom is beneficial for both you as a teacher, because you don't have to recreate everything all the time. You maybe just have to reorganize some things, which I love, because I'm always redoing things for each year as far as how I present it to my students, but they are similar assignments. So Canvas allows me to do that, which I love. So I can edit a quiz or edit an assignment or edit a discussion, and I don't have to think of the whole thing all over again. Ginger is also going to go over placing locks in your modules if you would like to have some things that are time sensitive, and maybe kind of, again, forcing students to do modules the way that you would like them to do them. So that's coming up. And then we'll continue to talk about modules as we continue to grow in our usage of our LMS this year, next year, and the following years.